shadow. They are prowling. In the end, it's getting me. I'm driving like a rocket, and in the highway I disappear. I'm getting near. That's right. There's no future in the city. That's me dead inside my head. Fear is my companion. I'm a fugitive. That's right.
This is Katz TV, also found on Facebook at Katz. We're doing this for Katz Magazine and for a little memento for Dave. Dave has been a drag racer since who knows when, right after they made the wheel, I think. Anyhow, at least 40 years of drag racing under his belt.
At least.
You realize that? 40 years?
Well, actually, probably closer to 50.
Yeah, you're
Almost.
71 now, so
Yeah,
that says probably closer
well,
to 60.
Yeah, well, maybe 55 years or something like that.
Yeah. Well, let's hope you can make a couple more passes before it's all over.
I'm done driving.
Done driving?
Yeah, I'm done driving.
Well,
I sat in the seat, sat in the mouth of the dragon for over 40 years, and I enjoyed it. I had a good time, and now I'm enjoying tuning the thing.
so that dragon, did that dragon ever burn you?
I'm sorry?
Did the dragon ever burn you?
Oh, yeah.
You felt the breath of the dragon?
I felt the breath of the dragon.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
I was driving for a guy named Nelson Lingle, and this is 1978, and we were match racers. You know, I mean, we got paid to race. That's the only way we could afford to race. But every now and then you'd take in a national event just to see how you stacked up against the rest of them. So we'd run pretty successful all summer, and then we decided Nelson decided he wanted to go to the World Finals in Ontario, California, and we started looking a motor over, and we needed a new motor. The block was cracked, the crank was bad, so I got us a block, and he came up with a crank, and
You built a motor.
built a motor. And there were a couple of problems in there, and that's where the crank came from was a problem. But we went to the race at Ontario Motor Speedway, and made our first qualifying pass, and I don't remember, it ran a 6:28, 2:28, something like that.
Ain't bad. For 78?
Yeah, it wasn't quite quick enough to qualify, but it was getting it down there, you know. And came back, and it had taken some pistons out. We had a little, took us all night to rebuild the thing and put new pistons in. I didn't quite understand what was going on, why the bottom end guy was taking so long to do his job. But we went out and did the second run, and I got out about, it's hard for me to remember, but I think I got out about half track, and the motor picked up. It started zinging. I thought it was spinning the tires, but it actually had broken the crankshaft, and the motor zingoed, and then it blew the crankshaft out the bottom of the motor. When it did that, it threw the transmission between my legs right out through the roof hatch, And of course, I'm sitting in a ball of fire. And it was videoed on the Wide World of Sports. And it burned itself out all the way until I hit the retaining wall at the end of the track there and skid around the wall. It burned the body off the car, and that probably helped me a whole bunch because it took a lot of the fire off me. But I ended up with 33% third degree, and spent 6 weeks in a burn center and about another year recuperating. And
So is that, they didn't have halon then?
yeah, we had halon, but in those days you had an actuator for a bottle, and I had one bottle on the steering column, and of course I hit that first, and then I reached down and I pulled one of the halon bottles, the right one, and I got on the brake and I hit the parachutes, and then I don't recall at that point, I don't remember ever pulling the left-hand bottle, and apparently I never did. But
It's just too much for one bottle.
well, it wasn't that. It was just, yeah, it was too much fire, totally, because it split the block in half from the camshaft down, and then drug it all along with it. So the oil was all coming out. It was an oil fire, and then there was no transmission, so the fire was coming right through the bell housing and right up between my legs. And I got to tell you, I love a crotch strap. Yeah, if you ever go racing, make sure you got a crotch strap, a fire protected one.
Mm-hmm.
They're very important.
Yes.
But yeah, it was a lot of fire coming inside the car on me, and
Well,
fire.
you were tested by fire.
Yeah, but I put another car together in 1980. That was 78, and in 79, like I said, I had to let the wounds heal, you know,
Yep.
because they didn't. It took a long time for them all to close up.
Right.
And
Probably had a couple of skin grafts, and
I'm sorry.
did you have a couple of skin grafts and such?
Yeah, over a third of my body.
Yeah.
They were taking skin off of everything to put it somewhere else,
Yeah.
and
So is that why you're a little thin-skinned today?
bad
So-
joke.
Bad joke, yeah. Well, anyhow, so looking at some of your pictures, it looks like, you know, you were hard bit at a young age to create something competitive, and pretty much knew what you wanted to do.
Well, I never had a lot of money. I mean, the only money I I never had a sponsor. Well, I take that back. I had a guy sponsor me one weekend for a drum of fuel, but for the most part, everything I put out everything that was in the car. You know, either I got it by racing and taking the money from the racing and investing it back in the car, or I, you know, bartered and traded and worked for people and did whatever I could, you know, and that's how I built my machine shop, was because there were a lot of things I wanted to do that I couldn't afford. I couldn't afford to buy what everybody else had, so I had to make it. And I found that I could make stuff a whole lot cheaper than what I could buy it. All it cost me was my time and a little bit of material.
Which left the door open for your innovations.
Yeah, it almost every time I make something, I analyze what I'm using and see if there's something I can do to make it better. You know, and most everything that a person uses in racing is some kind of a compromise, and I try to alter or get rid of some of the compromises, and sometimes I just have what I call my zap factor, where a bolt of lightning comes down and zap, you know, and says, okay, do this. Oh yeah, okay, I'm doing it. But I like to build stuff. It's my form of art, you know.
Yeah, it is an art form, no doubt about it.
You know, I'm just a guy that makes stuff. I mean, I make stuff because I can't afford to buy it. I think more other racers know me for the innovations. I mean, like, I was the first to use dual fuel pumps. I was the first to use gear gear pumps that everybody runs now. And everybody runs dual fuel pumps, you know, a different configuration now. But in the 80s, when I came out with it, they laughed at me. Said it wasn't possible. You can't possibly use that much fuel. Well, a guy named Dale Armstrong was plenty whippy dude for Kenny Bernstein, you know, and he made it work. You know, I mean, I gave him the idea, but he made it work. I floundered around. I couldn't get my car to run over 235 miles an hour. Some other friends of mine were in the same boat because about 3 years after I came out with the first dual fuel pump setup, Enderle got behind the ball when Waterman made a fuel pump that was outdoing theirs. So they adopted my idea, and seeing as how I'd been buying gears and different parts from them and making my own dual drive, they just adopted it and took their stuff and made their own dual drive and started selling it to racers, you know. And some of the first guys that used it, like Gary Ritter and Harrison, they used it to moderate success, but they couldn't get it to run over 235 either. And then we were at Pomona in '84, and I burned a bearing on a crankshaft on my motor, and had the motor out, and I had an open trailer. I'm parked amongst all these semi-tractor trailer rigs with my little open trailer, you know, and I had the motor out of it, and the chassis was sitting there with nothing in it but the fuel pumps, and the fuel system was sitting there because I just yanked the motor out and was changing the crankshaft. And I look up, and there's these guys in Budweiser shirts all taking pictures of my car, and I thought, what are those guys taking pictures of my car for, you know? I had no clue why they'd even be interested. And
Is that Bernstein's?
yeah, that was Bernstein's guys. I don't know which ones it was because I didn't recognize them. I didn't know the people then. And then later on, a month or two later, they were at Gainesville, and Bernstein ran 260 miles an hour, and the first funny car to run 260, and everybody went up. He had dual fuel pumps on it, you know, and they all had to have it. So Enderle started selling dozens of fuel pumps. I can't.
But some people say you're nasty. Now, where does that come from?
In 1974, I built my first fuel alternator. In '73, I drove a couple of other fuel alternators for guys, and in '74, I built my first one. And while I was building it, I was recently divorced and hanging out at a bar, and I came in there one day, and there was a pin hanging on the wall. It said, "Nasty Benjamin is coming." And it turned out Nasty Benjamin was a band from California that was going to play in the bar. I went in there for a week and bought the bartender drinks and finally talked him out of that pin. And I had that for a long time, and I thought, you know, what's the meanest, nastiest car in drag racing? It's a fuel alternator. So, Nasty Benjamin is coming. I didn't say it's coming, I just called it Nasty Benjamin. It's a parody on a California band.
Yeah.
Recently on Facebook, somebody posted a picture of one of those pins. I haven't seen one since '74, 40 some years, you know. And they'd found a pin on eBay that said Nasty Benjamin is coming, just like the one I had.
Well, you made the band famous then. You know, they owe you.
But no, it was just a way to call a car, you know. I mean, fuel alters are evil, mean, and nasty. So
Yeah, unpredictable. But that's what the audience likes. That's what the fans want to see, and it's just beyond belief that the associations like NHRA and IHRA and whatever else just is not supporting you. And I'm sure I'm not alone in thinking that that needs to change. Yeah, don't know what could be done about it, but it needs to change. So some of the innovations and inventions, for lack of a better term, that you've come up with, rumor is NHRA didn't like them. they outlawed you.
Well,
What's that about?
That's just about the truth with anything anybody comes up with. But yeah, I had a few. You know, I had a few, and one of the funniest ones is one I never did. But
You got credit for it?
I got credit for it, but I never did it. About, if you want a story, about 1983, I think it was, we were racing the funny car at Pomona. And right next door to my shop was Cellular One Telephone. And the guys put phones in cars in Bellevue, you know, Bellevue, Washington. If you live in Bellevue and you have a Corvette, you have to have a cell phone in it.
Sure.
So they gave me an antenna, and I had a Corvette funny car, so we put this antenna on the back window of the funny car. We went to Denver and came back with a picture at 235 miles an hour, and the antenna's bent over like that, you know. And the guys liked it. And then my crew chief at the time, or my crew guy, Dan Jones, I'd seen video of him when I left the starting line. He'd kind of clench his fingers to his stomach like that, and he was going, as the car would go down the track, he'd like this, you know, like he was guiding the car.
Yeah.
So we go to Pomona. I make a pass. I get down to the end, and the announcer or one of the media guys comes down and says, "Dave, I gotta ask you, what's that antenna for?" And me being a smart ass says, "Oh, my crew guy doesn't trust me, so I let him drive the car." well,
You're over at tech inspection right now.
Well, you can imagine the next pass we made happened to be our personal best. We ran a low 6 at 235, something like that. I don't remember what it was exactly, but it was a personal best for us, you know. And I got down, and here's a national tech director standing there. Said, "Hi, what are you doing there?" And he says, "I got to ask you about that antenna." I said, "Oh, that? Oh, that's nothing." He says, "Well, I got to see what it's hooked up to." I said, "It's not hooked up to anything. It's just,
Yeah.
you know." And I told him, I said, "You know, that's kind of funny. You're the second guy that's asked me about that antenna." He says, "Well, you know why I'm here, don't you?" I said, "No." He says, "The first guy believed you." That year in the rule book, there came out a rule in the rule book that said, "No remote controls of funny cars."
Like they really needed to make a rule.
Well, the problem was that by this time they knew me for bringing all kinds of different things to the races. I mean, I went one year with a full, complete aerodynamics belly pan under the car, and ground effect belly pan, you know, and I came in with my 3-valve cylinder heads, and I had dual fuel pumps on it, and this was all stuff they'd never seen before, you know, because nobody had ever done that. So they didn't know what I was going to come up with next. So they took it seriously, but it was funny.
And you've had some weird, well, maybe not weird, but definitely different body configurations over the years. That one right there, that little red car that's kind of like a, I don't know what I think it looks like. That one right there.
That one, oh, that,
What do you call that?
well, it's a
name.
fuel alter.
Fuel altered, but the body on it is.
Well, it's actually, that's a Brogy body. It's a 1927 Model T Roadster, street roadster body. And I got together with Ron, the guy down in the south that built the hydroplanes. This is back in the 80s or whatever, 80s and 90s. I had an involvement in the hydroplane racing because I was building the billet propellers for them. And they were putting the canopies on them, and back in the early 80s I dealt with Jerry Verhill, who was crew chief on the Tosti Osti for Steve Woomer. And I did a lot of work on their boats, and I mounted their first canopy and built a roll bar inside the canopy and did some stuff like that, you know. So through this connection, I wanted to put a canopy on the fuel altar. So they built up all the mold and everything and put it on there for me. And
Then you incorporated the wing into the body somehow.
yeah, well, a Brogy body had a flat panel on the back of it, built into the fiberglass instead of a deck that went down, which was, I found, was giving trouble. The curved deck of the back of a 27 body creates lift. And because of that, we wanted to get rid of it and cause the downforce. So Brogy had built the bodies, instead of being curved down, they went out straight, went out flat. Well, and I added to that, I added a spoiler, which I needed to create drag, and I added side panels, which I needed to contain the air to create the drag, because I was going to put a lot more fuel in it, and try to get the car to run over 250. This is in the late 90s. In 1993, that same chassis, we'd set the record for fuel altered at 5.612, and later had run 245 with it, but it was spinning the tires, it was hazing the tires all the way. So I built that body to try and get it to run 250 to keep her get it pushed down and keep her from hazing the tires. And then about that time, things slowed up in my racing quite a bit, and I think what happened was in '99, if I remember correctly, in '99 I burnt the funny car up at Spokane, and I just kind of hung it up for a while because it was getting to be obvious that it was out-dollaring me to the point I couldn't keep up, and it was stupid of me to keep trying on the amount of money I had. And so I ended up trading that body to a guy named Mike Brown, who had an alcohol funny car, and he wanted to put a roadster body on it. So he traded me half the price of a trailer that he had for that body. And
And you're still running a form of a T body today.
yeah, what I'm using right now is a 1923 Street Roadster body. It's just one that you get out of Speedway magazine to build a Street Roadster with.
Mm-hmm.
And I patterned it after, the one I've got today, I patterned after my 76 car with 23T with a little detachable turtle deck on it. And I just kind of patterned it after that. It's not aerodynamic or swoopy or anything, but I got rid of the turtle deck and built an aluminum pickup box, a little short aluminum pickup box there.